The Marlins rotation looks to be decimated heading into opening day. Some guys on their way back soon, but the Marlins desperately need innings. There is one obvious candidate. Many people won't like this name for various off-field reasons, but on the field, Trevor Bauer solves a lot of problems for the Marlins headed into this season. Will Peter Bendix pull the trigger on this one? Tons to get into. This is Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked on Marlins. This is your daily Marlins pod. I am your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up, of course, on X at Miami Marlins _UK. If you're listening to the pod, firstly, greetings, good morning, and welcome to another week. It's Monday, the 18th of March. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you get your pods. Of course, this is your team every day. And thanks for making Locked on Marlins your first listen of the day and of the week. Don't forget as well, there is a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is also called Locked on Marlins, so head on over there, hit subscribe, and join us in the comments, guys. Always great to hear from everyone. This could be one of those episodes. This definitely could be one of those episodes where it has a polarizing view. I'm confident there's going to be some polarizing views because for those that have the rundown in front of them, they will see two of the three topic areas involve one, Trevor Bauer, and two, Avisail Garcia. So the comment should be en fuego on this one. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. And we are starting with the pitching. It has been the big theme of the offseason, the big theme of spring, mainly spring, I would say. And we're in now a position where the injuries are piling up. We're awaiting news around Yuri Perez. It feels like that news should be coming maybe later today. So I just want to signpost it. There could be an emergency pod later on if indeed we get some seismic news regarding Yuri Perez. Nevertheless, this spring has been dominated by Marlins pitching and the depth. Well, the first going into spring is how are they going to deal without having Sandy Alcantara? And how are they going to cover Sandy's innings? That's the first question. They equally have a lot of guys coming back. Trevor Rogers, Max Meyer. They've transitioned AJ Puck. So much has been going on with this starter mix throughout spring and through the offseason. And the first riddle that Peter Bendix was trying to solve is how do I cover Sandy's innings? That's where it starts. We're now into a stage where it isn't just Sandy's innings that need to be covered. It could potentially be Yuri Perez's innings that he was maybe projected for this year. It's Braxton Garrett's innings. It's Edward Cabrera's innings. And the question will be as well is, can Jesus Luzardo have a repeat performance or even exceed the performance or the innings of last season based on his track record and what's happening around the game? If you're a betting man, you probably say no. You probably say that there'd be a little ailment or two along the way. So that's the kind of backdrop of this situation. The Marlins badly need innings, big league quality innings, not we're in tank mode innings and we don't really care. The Marlins roster is set up to compete. It's set up to be a competitive roster. That's how it's been sold anyway. We've got Berger and Bell for the full year, a healthy Jazz, and we've signed Tim Anderson. That's the offensive approach. On the pitching side, the approach seemed to be we're going to stretch out as many guys as possible, and we're going to mix and match to cover the gap that Sandy's left. Basically seemed to be the method. We're going to stretch out Soriano. We're going to stretch out Hoeing. We're going to stretch out Puck. Hopefully Rogers comes back. Who knows what we can get out of Sixto? More about him later. But that was the strategy, it seems. Let's stretch out as many so we've got as many options as possible. regarding innings and potential rotation situations. The challenge the Marlins now face is that Sandy's down, but then 3 of the guys that would likely be on the opening day rotation and roster, not rotate, you know what I'm saying, in Yuri Perez, in Eddie Cabrera, in Braxton Garrett, seemingly they're not going to be available for at least the first time, if not the second time, if not the whole season, maybe. So that's a challenge. It's a big challenge because they've got a slew of injuries. And whilst there is an element of depth, it's starting to get to a critical moment where the questions have to be asked around, do they need help? Should there be more help? They'd already laid in a couple of NRIs, Smeltzer, Chirinos, etc., that may be able to do something. We saw Smeltzer play a role last year. Chirinos at this point, could well make the opening day rotation or roster, it seems. We'll see how it all goes. But considering the Marlins are losing guys, it's maybe time to add. And that's the backdrop here, where we're talking about Trevor Bauer specifically. And the reason we're talking about Trevor Bauer is he still remains unsigned. Is that a surprise? Probably not. Probably not in some sense. Trevor Bauer out there saying that he's happy to play on league minimum. He just wants the opportunity. He wants an opportunity considering what's gone on. I guess the main case that he was facing into, it ended up being discovered that it was basically a shakedown operation by the female party, basically trying to trap him into a situation to squeeze dough out of him. He held firm. He was proven to be correct in that situation. And okay, there's maybe a couple of other things going on aside from this, etc., etc. But at the moment, everyone else seems to be getting second chances. Aroldis Chapman is at a second chance. Man, he might be on his 5th chance. I don't know what Aroldis Chapman was thinking on his recent IG post, but boy, oh boy, that was a red flag if ever I've seen one. But Aroldis Chapman continues to pitch. He continues to be in the league. Trevor Bauer at this point is seeking an opportunity. Why is it pertinent to Locked On Marlins? It's pertinent because a former Cy Young winner, a relatively proven innings eater type dude, is available for league minimum. So potentially high quality innings at the lowest possible cost. Peter Bendix specializes. He's built everything around buying low and realizing the upside. Upside moves galore. You make multiple upside moves, and if a couple of them come off, great. For Trevor Bauer, in reality, for the Marlins at this moment, he is the ultimate upside move. And the Marlins at this point need him. They need Trevor Bauer. They need someone to come in and be able to throw quality, at least mid-rotation quality, big league innings, and throw many of them and not pay any money. That is the exact profile that Peter Bendix is seeking. Good innings, a lot of innings, no money. It's Trevor Bauer. He's the only one that fits that profile. And he fits that profile because he's looking for a redemption tour. I don't think we generally know enough about the situation with Trevor Bauer. Everyone's come to their own conclusions about his off-field stuff. He's been cleared to play. That's all we can say at this point. He has been cleared to play. There's other guys out there equally have been cleared to play and continue to play. Trevor Bauer has been cleared to play. And he's willing to play, if the situation is right for him, maybe, at league minimum dough. Say what you want about Bauer, whether you like him, whether you don't. I don't truly know I don't know Trevor Bauer. I don't know anything about him, really. Only way I can make my own decisions around Bauer is what I've seen in terms of the content he's created. And what he demonstrates to me, the first time I encountered Trevor Bauer was him talking about the way that the money situation works in baseball. And it was really enlightening to me. I didn't know any of that stuff, but what it really demonstrated to me is Trevor Bauer has an extremely high IQ. He is a very, very switched on dude. Not just about baseball, as in how do I throw baseballs and what are the mechanics of throwing baseballs, etc. He's actually got an extremely high IQ, just generally. He understands the numbers. He understands what's going on. He understands the bigger picture. He's a really intelligent dude. And everything I've seen subsequently around that backs that up. Trevor Bauer, I think, is an extremely switched on dude. Maybe he's misunderstood. I don't know. Maybe it's seen as arrogance. Maybe people don't like his arrogance, whatever it might be. And yeah, there's been these off-field issues. He's a freak in the sheets, maybe. I don't know. At the moment, he's cleared to play. And his profile fits perfectly what the Marlins need. Could it be a PR disaster for the Marlins? Probably not. At this point, it's worth it. What kind of PR what is the negative impact going to be here for the Marlins? If a couple of fans say, that's it, I'm not watching the Marlins anymore. The reality is the building is barely full anyway. The Marlins and the Miami market wants a winner. It wants a team to be consistently winning. Trevor Bauer in 2024 gives the Marlins a better chance of having that consistency because they made the postseason in 23. They're dealing with some challenges right now. It's clear. Losing Sandy, losing Yuri. Other guys will be lost too. This is only the start of the year. As we go through the year, probably one of Brax, Luzardo, Rogers, and Puck will be down for at least half a season, if not multiple of them guys. So the Marlins need Bauer now. And as the year goes on, they're going to need Bauer even more. And so are other clubs. As you get into the year and the injuries start to hit, you're going to need him too. For me, with Trevor Bauer, it's a no-brainer. It fits perfectly. He's cleared to play. Innings, quality innings, no money, upside pick for Bendix, and fills a void that the Marlins have right now. I was listening to the Fish on First Spaces from last night. Great spaces from the guys. Great conversation. There's a lot of focus in that topic around the pitching on, well, if we sign a free agent now, they won't be able to help this problem now because they may not be built up and be able to deliver innings from opening day. They see that as the gap and that as the problem. I just want to call that out, that isn't the gap and that isn't the problem. There's a bigger gap and there's a bigger problem because what happens when 3 weeks in, Eddie Cabrera's blister reoccurs? Eddie Cabrera's control or command disappears. Puck. I mean, there's so many risks for the Marlins here. And the way people were speaking about it was, we just need 5 guys. Eddie will be back soon. Brax will be back soon. It's just not realistic. The Marlins badly need innings eaters. Badly. And not just cannon fodder. Signing a former Cy Young dude on league minimum money who's still in his early 30s is a shrewd move. It's a perfect Peter Bendix move. The upside is there and the requirement is there. Bauer needs the Marlins and the Marlins need Bauer. I'm very interested to see if they get anything done in this space. They probably won't. But for me, the PR does that. I don't know. Again, I don't know all the facts, and maybe the big league teams have a little bit more detail than I do at this point. But all I know is he's cleared to play, and if that's the situation, and for the market like the Marlins, really Bauer fits perfectly there. I get it. Maybe other clubs that are higher valued, let's say, see more risk. But for the Marlins, there is no risk. Really. There is no risk. There's only upside. It smells like a Pete Bendix move to me. All right, guys, first ad of the day, and then we're going to carry on the conversation because I need to talk about Dane Myers, and I also need to talk about Avisail Garcia in a positive light. Yes, a positive light. But this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. We'll get the graphics pumped. Yes, sir. And you can say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All right, guys, back here with me, Peter Pratt, on Monday, the 18th of March. And as you can see here in the UK, if you are watching, it's glorious today. The sun is shining. The sun is shining and spring has sprung. I'm actually going to have to go and cut the grass, I think, for the first time this year. It's always a big moment that when you get the lawnmower out and you work out you haven't got enough petrol in there and you got to go and get some petrol or some gas, as my American friends would call it. And then I realized that there's a blockage in something and the lawnmower doesn't work. And by the time I get it working, it started raining. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about some Marlins offensive guys. And I'm going to flip it around here a touch. And I want to segue into Avisail Garcia. Because why not? Why not? We've had one guy already that isn't a Marlin, that could be a Marlin, that a lot of people aren't overly fond of for their own reasons. We also have a guy that is a Marlin, that is still a Marlin, that many people aren't fond of for their own reasons, but actually their main reason is primarily his performance on the field. As we know, Avisail Garcia has stunk it up for a couple of years with the Marlins, taken the dough, ballooned, shrunk, changed his stance, ballooned again. You name it, everything that could have gone wrong for Avisail Garcia has gone wrong. Headed into this spring, the Marlins, he's still at spring. I don't know what the future holds here. I don't know. Alex Carver made a great point on Fish on First. I think a Marlins fan was asking around this topic area, and he just said, listen, when have you seen the Marlins cut guaranteed money? And how frequently does that happen? And it's a good point. That's the problem here for the Fish. They've got this guaranteed dough. They're looking to get some sort of return on that, ideally on-field production. That's the backdrop here. What I wanted to say with Avisail Garcia is in the last couple of days, there's been some degree of production, it's fair to say, which is encouraging. Avi at this point, he is, if he's not DFA'd, he is making the roster. And the question will be is what his role will be. Avisail Garcia will be hoping to bounce back, let's say. He'll be hoping to stay healthy, bounce back, and deliver some degree of production. And the last couple of days have been encouraging, it's fair to say. I think his role is going to be interesting. Again, the roster will evolve over the season. Injuries will kick in, but if everyone is healthy and all is equal at this point, I've often felt that he's the perfect platoon partner for Jesus Sanchez. And if that's his only role, then fine. What I would say, though, is Brian De La Cruz in left field is really not good. Really not good. So there's definitely a situation here where Brian De La Cruz ends up DHing more often and Avisail Garcia plays some left field. Jesus Sanchez playing some right. I could absolutely see that happening where maybe you were thinking, oh, well, Avi's going to be the DH. I think Avi's much more able in the outfield than Brian De La Cruz personally. The other thing on Brian De La Cruz is, man, oh man, he started on fire, hit a load of balls hard. Everyone was getting excited about that. And subsequently has done nothing. He's basically been, at Kellenic levels. It's been really poor for De La Cruz since the first 2-3 games. I just want to call out that Brian De La Cruz still has minor league options. Do you remember that the Marlins sent him down in 2022? And that's when he came back a new man. Came back a man on fire. It was Denzel Washington. Have I got the right actor for that film? Some people are wondering what the hell I'm going on about. Anyway, just type it in, man on fire. I think that was Denzel Washington, wasn't it? Anyway, he went down, he came back up, and he was on fire. Started 23 pretty well. And, counting stats-wise, he was the RBI leader. I think Loud Marlins fans pointed that out to me a few times, which is fair enough. He definitely has been a decent stick. But I must say, for the Marlins in general, they've got a big problem in the corners in some ways. Like, because we're Marlins fans and we're hyper focused on this roster, you know, you look at, you start to dream about Jesus Sanchez's power, and you dream about Brian De La Cruz's, the fact he looks like LeBron James. I don't know. He's a fun guy, and you know, you dream on a few things. Like, can he repeat? Can he find that 2022 September? You dream on that a bit. You dream on Avisail just finding his like pre-Marlins form. All these things. You mix it together, and you've got Jazz in center field. The corner outfield spots for the Marlins are unfortunately just way below par versus other competitive clubs. And I think that's kind of the problem here, where we're kind of just, there's no one pushing Jesus Sanchez or Brian De La Cruz in the corners. I'm going to talk about Dane Myers shortly, but there's no one really pushing those guys. Avi's just like being able to be a passenger on this roster because he's paid the money. And we all just have to kind of just, you know, cruise along and just say, yeah, that's fine. The Marlins are so underpowered and so unproductive in the corner spots, in those outfield spots. Like, they should be your super production spots. And we just don't see it. We're having to like dream on Jesus Sanchez finding it, and dream on Brian De La Cruz finding it, and Avi refinding it. It feels ambitious. That's why the Marlins offense is below par. The spots that matter, they're way on demand, and way underproductive versus their peers. That's the problem. Anyway, Avisail Garcia is having a nice run. I would personally love it if Avi would rediscover it, because it'd be a great boost for the Marlins, clearly, because they're paying the dough, and just to see any sort of return would be great. Like I mentioned, I feel like if all is equal, he's at least just a straight up platoon, short side platoon with Jesus Sanchez in one of the corners. If Brian De La Cruz struggles and continues to struggle, then I'm interested to see what that means. But equally, there's a situation here where I think Avi could play a little bit more in the outfield than Brian De La Cruz. Like, DLC is just, he's really not good out there. He really isn't. Let's talk about Dane Myers after the next ad, because Dane is having a spring. He was my guy that I was excited about. Like, I was excited about Dane Myers' 2023 performance, to be honest with you. And I was looking at this guy and thinking, there's a player here in Dane Myers. So we're going to talk about him, and if there's still an opportunity for Dane Myers to make this roster and equally make an impact on this roster and on this Marlins offense straight out of the gate here in opening day. Before we do that, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at eBay Motors. Absolutely love this one, by the way. And passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, guys, final segment here with me, Peter Pratt. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It is Monday, the 18th of March. March? Monday, the 18th of March. And we have already talked about it's Trevor Bauer time for the Marlins. The Marlins need him, and Bauer needs the Marlins. Avisail Garcia showing signs of life recently, which is encouraging. I did see as well a tweet from, it might have been Fish on First and Danny Alvarez. It felt like the same tweet, basically saying about Luis Arias and how he's come alive in spring since his like really slow start that, you know, I was just shining a light on at the time. Like, he started slow. He's then back to doing Luis Arias things, which is great. And I think that's really funny, right? Where we will look at Luis Arias' numbers and go, he's back. It's looking good. We then forget that it's only spring. Like that whole kind of like, well, it's only spring training. We kind of like discard that in some ways for Luis Arias. But for other players, it's a bit like, well, it's only spring. I think that's a really interesting kind of psychological thing. The main reason is like Luis Arias, we know what we're going to get. We saw what we're going to get with him. And he started like his first couple of at-bats like he was an 0 for something. And then subsequently has gone on the usual Luis Arias tear. And so we're all like, okay, Arias is back and everything's all good. The reason why spring stats are important is Luis Arias now is kind of ascending. Jazz Chisholm's having a nice spring. A lot of the other guys, though, offensively have had poor springs and continue to have poor springs. And the Marlins offense as a group is, at the moment, ranked 30th. So these are the indicators. The Marlins offense wasn't good last year. In spring, it's still not looking good. The standout guys remain Luis Arias, surprise, surprise. Jazz Chisholm Jr., surprise, surprise. They're the best sticks. The rest of the guys, and there's a group, is bad. Like, again, it goes back to the point. We're having a dream on Jesus Sanchez and Brian De La Cruz in the corners. That's what we're having a dream on. We're having a dream on a Tim Anderson bounce back after having one of the worst offensive campaigns in the history of baseball last year. I may have oversold that a touch, but you know what I'm saying. We're having to dream on the upside instead of really looking at the detail of what we see on a day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year basis. And what we're seeing is this Marlins offense is bottom 5. It's bottom 5. And that is the reality. That's why it's so frustrating that the Marlins aren't doing anything this offseason to really address that. Why isn't JD Martinez a Marlin already? Like, why is he not? Honestly, it's malpractice. I know the Marlins have got other problems now with the pitching side. Anyway, I want to talk about Dane Myers, but I also wanted to mention that about spring stats. The way that, like any stat, you can manipulate them to suit the narrative you want. And the narrative there is, Arias started slow and now he's on fire. But the bigger narrative is, this Marlins offense is way below par. Way below par. And for Peter Bendix to rock out here and try to sell to me, this offense is going to be better because Bell and Berger are here for a full year is a nonsense. That is a nonsense. That's spin. Bruce Sherman and Peter Bendix have badly let down the Marlins fan base this offseason in not adding enough. Not adding enough, and maybe even not cutting the dead wood. This offense is still a bottom 5 Major League Baseball offense, however you spin it. It is what it is. Anyway, Dane Myers could be a sleeper stud. I love Dane's profile. I loved what I saw when he came up. He was electric when he first came up. His first couple of at-bats, first couple of games. It's like, Dane is absolutely on fire. Then he had a period where he was super unlucky. Dane had a period where he was like super, super unlucky, and the numbers kind of tailed away accordingly. But I believe this with Dane Myers. There's an opportunity for him. There's a role for him. And from what we're seeing, there's a stick. There is a productive stick there. All I want to say is at this point, Skip's being asked about Dane now because he's having probably the best spring of all of the offensive guys. Probably not named Luis Arias. So is Dane Myers the one who's forcing his hand? The Marlins have a challenge in that Nick Gordon and Vidal Brujan have 0 options. Nick Gordon, I think, has had an okay spring. Vidal Brujan, I think, is underwhelmed, but he's now hurt. Shoulder issue. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at this and thinking, shoulder issue for Brujan, slow spring. Gut feel is maybe Brujan's not going to make this, he's going to maybe need an IL stint to start the year. Maybe. Dane Myers is the most obvious next man up. He really is. And because of the versatility you got in Birdie and Gordon, having Dane Myers on the roster as well, there's no problem with that. They can absolutely. It's not like the Marlins are desperate for another, infielder, middle infielder, because they got other guys that can fill those spots. Maybe Tim Anderson's going to be playing everyday shortstop, and the same for Luis Arias at second base. So as things stand right now, and considering where we're up to, Dane Myers has actually earned his spot. What he showed to me in 2023 was ultra encouraging, even though he got unlucky at the back end of that stint. He can play all outfield spots, which is what they need, for sure. He can play every outfield spot. The stick looks good. And for me, he's earned his spot in spring. The way the roster was coming together with effectively no way to move Avi, no way to move Brujan, no way to move Nick Gordon, meant that he was probably going to be squeezed. The same for Xavier Edwards. Xavier Edwards has had an injury too. Now Vidal Brujan is injured. We don't know how long for, but now Brujan is injured. It does maybe open up an opportunity here to get Dane Myers onto the roster. And I've said this before many, many times. I am in baseball, you can't be amazing and on fire all season. There's ebbs and flows. And right now, I'm looking at things, and Dane Myers' stick is one of the hottest sticks in the organization. Like, I'd happily have Dane Myers in there over Brian De La Cruz at left field. No brainer. I'd probably have Nick Gordon as well, to be honest with you. But the Marlins should ride the hot stick. Dane Myers he's earned his chance here, and he should be on this roster. Considering this Brujan news, I think he probably will be on the roster. And I can see Dane Myers playing a role. And the way things work here, I can see Dane Myers up on this roster like all season, to be honest with you. So his opportunity is there. He is, and I shared this like headed into 2024, that he's my deep sleeper for the Marlins, like a guy that could just ascend and really contribute. Really contribute. I'm super high on Dane Myers. I love the guy. I love the profile. And I love what I saw in 23 in a small sample. With that being said, guys, we're out of time. And it's Monday. The sun's out, and I got to get the lawnmower going. So thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking about Trevor Bauer. Let me know what you're thinking about Avisail Garcia, and let me know what you're thinking about Dane Myers. How comfortable would you feel if Bauer was signed by the Marlins on league minimum? Would that stop you going to games or watching the team or even just his starts? Do you feel that passionately about it? Let me know. Let me know. Do you see any hope for Avisail Garcia? Do you see any hope here? There's a few green shoots, to be honest. And for me, Dane Myers has earned his spot, and I think he's going to make this roster. Appreciate you joining me. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. See you then.